That's like all wrong. So that's just, nope, just no. SPAS is iconic in Half-Life. Actually, that's really well modeled for 2004, I think. Hey guys, I'm Ian McCollum. I run Forgotten Weapons YouTube channel and website. And today we're going to be taking a look at the representation of the Franchi SPAS-12 shotgun in video games. A gun that has had a long and popular life in pop culture, perhaps more so than in actual real world use. I'm curious to see what we got today. All right, we have Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege. This isn't Half-Life. Half-Life was where they used this SPAS-12. All right, okay, anyway. Having a laser on the end is not really useful on a shotgun. Like, that's the laser you'd stick on something like an M4, not so necessary here. All right, I would normally associate Tom Clancy with really good technical detail, and that's not what I'm seeing here. There's all sorts of weird stuff going on with this SPAS-12. There is some sort of little miniature sling swivel on the side of the gun. There's not normally a sling swivel there. But then if you compare the guy's hand to the sling swivel, that's maybe a 3/8 of an inch wide sling swivel. That's useless. They have just randomly attached a chunk of Picatinny rail to the top of the gun. Such a thing did not exist. They've then put a red dot on it that looks like an aim point, maybe. But they put it on a riser, which is also there's no good reason to do that. You use a riser when you have a straight line stock that requires your head to be higher, and you use the riser to lift the red dot up to your proper line of sight. On a shotgun like this, it has iron sights already built into it, although I'm not sure they're actually represented here. You would want the red dot as close to the line of the iron sights as possible because that's how the stock and the action are designed. That's where it's going to place your head. The optics rail is wrong. The red dot is poorly chosen and poorly mounted. I don't know what the sling swivel is if someone in the design team just decided the side of the gun looked too boring.
Regarding that sling swivel, it actually allows you to attach what's called a weapon charm, and here's what that looks like.
Oh, good lord. That's okay. Okay. Well, okay then. I'd be really curious to hear Tom Clancy's personal opinion of that feature. It looks like he is reloading that thing incredibly quickly, way faster than a normal human. It almost looks like he's racking the bolt first, but no, he does in fact, what he's doing is dropping one shell into the chamber and then hits the bolt release to chamber that round and then loads the magazine too. He's just doing it at basically superhuman efficiency. He doesn't take enough time for his hand to actually go to a belt or anywhere else that ammo might be holding. The hand just goes out of frame and magically appears with new cartridges. The reason that you're flipping the thing over is so that you have visual access to the loading port. If you fumble anything, the round doesn't fall to the ground. It's much more likely if you fumble it a little bit, it's still kind of in position to be loaded. Where if you're trying to load that thing up from underneath, you can't see it. You're more likely to not get something quite right or to fumble around and drop it out of the gun. So the one in the chamber hit the release is absolutely valid. And then flipping the gun over sacrifices a little bit of speed for an element of reliability, and doing it under stress. I have no objection to that style. Nothing necessarily wrong with what the gun's doing shooting wise, but the modeling of that thing is just all a big mess. I've never tried to blow holes in walls with buckshot, but there is definitely an element of realism to it. You do have a large number of pellets. With buckshot, you're going to have 8, maybe 9 pellets, 30 caliber pellets that are being fired. 32, 33 caliber pellets, I think, in double aught. At any rate, you have a large number of pellets that are being fired, especially if you back up from the wall a bit. Those pellets are going to have a little more time to widen out. I'm sure they'll do a lot of damage to something like drywall, or it'll take a lot of it to go through 2x4s. So there's some element of realism there, yeah. SPAS is iconic in Half-Life. Taking a look at it there. All right, what do we have? We have no stock on that gun at all. Reasonably well modeled. That's really well modeled for 2004, I think. The alternate mode fires 2 shots at once. And that, in my mind, is the iconic thing about the SPAS in Half-Life, is that your alt fire was 2 rounds, which is totally bogus. It's based on someone's apparent assumption that that bottom magazine tube is actually another barrel, which of course it is not. It is interesting to me here that the game is representing this in pump action mode. One of the really interesting things about the SPAS technically is it was designed to be both semi-automatic and pump action, and you can choose which mode of operation you want to use. And the rationale for that was this was a shotgun designed for law enforcement use, where it might be used with regular buckshot ammunition, but it was also certainly available to use with less lethal projectiles, whether they be rubber buckshot or some sort of beanbag rounds. Those rounds typically will not cycle a semi-automatic firearm, a semi-automatic shotgun. And so they gave it the option to use it manually, where you can fire anything out of that shotgun and you're not worried about it malfunctioning because you're operating it manually. However, in a game like Half-Life, you're firing just traditional standard buckshot ammunition. There is no reason not to set it back to semi-automatic mode, except that it gives the character in the game something visible to actually do with the gun and make some more sound effects with it, which kind of falls in line with why the SPAS-12 I think is in a lot of games, which is because it's got this very distinctive, interesting looking front end with the sheet metal and the pump, the big pump handle. It looks distinctive. And that's a big element in a video game where all you really have to go on are the looks and some algorithmic mathematics going on inside the game. Okay, this is not a game that I am at all familiar with. Oh, we got more Matrix bullet time here. This modeling is all messed up. So this is set up in theory with the stock folded on top of the gun. If you're gonna do that, they still want you to be able to see the sights. So they've made the stock like 2 separate bars. You fold the stock up, you cannot see the sights because, well, you're not going to be using them if you've got the stock folded. And so they've decided, like, all of the scaling is off on this thing. And once again, the guy's running his pump gun. There's no particular reason that he would want to, set the thing back to semi-auto and save yourself some effort. But again, I think that just looks less interesting from a video game perspective. Yeah, this is poorly modeled. Like, you compare this to the modeling in Half-Life, which came out a year earlier, and yeah, rejected. The whole reason that the SPAS-12 shows up in games instead of any number of other shotguns that frankly are out there in much greater numbers is because the SPAS is visually distinctive. And that top folding sort of strut looking stock is a big part of that. Like, they made the SPAS with a fixed stock, which is a lot more comfortable to shoot with, like a lot more comfortable to shoot with. But you don't ever really see that because that's not the cool looking one. And video games are all about how the thing looks, because you're not actually experiencing any of the handling or the firing. All you're experiencing is the visual, that one visual aspect of it. That appears to be a beautifully modeled SPAS-12 with, a few shortcuts taken. So normally if you're putting one round in the chamber like that, it actually drops onto the elevator. And then when you close the bolt, it gets chambered. You don't actually put it all the way into the chamber yourself. This guy has very good recoil control, which is not impossible, but normally most people, the front end of that gun would jump up quite a lot more when firing. That's like all wrong. Okay, so that appears to be an EOTech and a magnifier, except the EOTech is backwards and the magnifier needs to be behind it, not in front of it. So that's just, nope, just no. Once again, there was not a version of the SPAS-12 made with a Picatinny rail on top. There was a Weaver scope mount rail that was made as an attachment. They've kind of sort of given it the wraparound sort of scope mount. It's hard to tell exactly what's going on here. What they've added on is that shell holder on the side, and on none of the previous games have properly represented that. They've just stuck a piece of Picatinny rail on the top of the receiver, which didn't actually happen. That's interesting. I'm impressed here at the rendering of the gun, but that optics setup it's laughable. Sorry. All right, Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. Generally looks like a beautifully rendered gun, except I can already predict that they're going to be showing us this thing fired using the sights with the stock folded, because the stock is open at the bottom to allow you to see through it to see the sights. And in reality, the bottom of that stock was closed because otherwise it will immediately bend and deform. There was a hole in the bottom of the shoulder rest, what is at the front of the gun here. That hole was to insert the arm hook, to install the arm hook if you wanted it, not as a hole to see the sights through. Everything else looks like it's really nicely rendered. Yep, there it is. Stocks on top, guys aiming down the sights. That doesn't work. Like, why are you doing this? Use the stock. It's there for a reason. You're looking down the sights, you're gonna punch yourself in the face with the gun. I mean, not if you're really good, but there's absolutely no reason not to be using the stock here. Except that it looks really cool in the game when you've got the stock on top, because it's got holes in it and rivets in it, and all that kind of cool stuff. It looks like we are actually using the thing in semi-auto, so there is that at least. The reload was reasonably effective. Again, faster than normal people could probably pull it off, but we can kind of give video games a pass on that, because if you had a realistic reload speed, the game might be a little too realistic to be so enjoyable. Oh, good Lord. Okay, pause it. But it looks like here we have another of, I guess, what is a growing trend of put all sorts of weird crap on your gun and customize it out, and we'll leave the reality off to the side here. So the jungle grip looks like it's some spray paint and then wrapping a bicycle inner tube around the grip. Suppressor looks goofy, but it's not actually that far out of line. There are some shotgun suppressors out there. You need a large volume of suppressor to handle the large volume of gas that a large bore shotgun creates. So you end up with suppressors that do in fact look pretty much like that. So I think what originally made it popular was both the distinctive look and the fact that it was, in fact, a very good tactical shotgun. It was used by a lot of people who really knew what they were doing. The semi-auto and pump action feature was valuable at the time and was put to good use. Today, the gun is obsolete, essentially. Today, it is a collector's piece, and it would be very rare to find it in definitely you won't find it in any serious military use, maybe outside of the third world. And I don't think you'll find police agencies using them today either. It's a collector's gun as much because of the media that it got into as it is because of the gun's own intrinsic characteristics. But honestly, I would say we have a pretty similar range of representations here, where some are excellent, a lot of them have a few little niggling problems, and a few of them are just awful. In general, it's represented fairly well. There's not quite as much necessarily going on for a game to get wrong, but it's far from perfect, especially the stupid stock. You either get to look at the cool stock or you get to see the iron sights. You can't do both. You cannot have both ways. Pick one, and the one you should pick is extend the stock.
For more videos like this one, make sure to watch Ian reacting to the AK-47 or the Mosin.